Hey everyone, I am back. It's been a while since I've been on here. I have been recovering from hand surgery, which is getting there. I have my follow-up appointment tomorrow to see how it's coming along and look at the stitches and stuff. Ugh, I'm dreading the removal of stitches more than I felt towards the entire experience of surgery, prep, recovery, and all that. So anyway, I want to talk about this. I've talked about this before, actually. It's been a couple years. I did a few Facebook Live videos on divorce and abuse and relationships, but this has recently come up in conversation again, and it is something I'm so passionate about. First of all, people, but especially women, not living in shame. And when it comes to relationships, when it comes to divorce, there is so much shame and stigma attached with it that it will paralyze people, especially women, to stay in relationships that they should have left a long time ago, or there should have been an adjustment at some point. But because of the shame, because of the stigma, because of the fear, they stay in it long after they should. And so here's the thing. Okay, I have so much I can say on this. When it comes to marriage, if you're married, and you're thinking about getting divorced, or you're on the verge of getting divorced, or you're in the midst of getting divorced, the goal is to not just not get divorced, right? A lot of married people think, well, as long as we don't get divorced, then we're okay. Or like some people might think like, well, I don't want to become a divorce statistic. So my goal now is to not become a divorce statistic, which is a horrible way to live your life, to not become something, or to not become a number on a paper, to not become a stat on a piece of paper. Here's the thing. What we have done for all of time, whenever a marriage became an institutionalized thing, is that we created a checklist. There's the marriage checklist, there's a divorce checklist, right? So when we get married, we check it, we're married. If we get divorced, we check divorce. Oh, divorce, whoops. Or we check, I didn't get divorced, yay. And not only did we create a checklist, we also made it a moral checklist. So to be married is a good check, and to get divorced is a bad check. And so we've turned it into a checklist, and we've turned it into a moral checklist. And so now there's all this shame that if this check goes in the divorce box, now this person is less than, or a failure, or they screwed up, or they're traumatizing their children. There's all this shame that comes with it. And here's the thing. The entire point of any relationship in your life, whether it's your partner or with your kids or with your friends, the entire point is to be rightly related. The point is to not simply not get divorced. The point is to be rightly related. We're in this intricate web of life, right, where what I do affects you, what you do affects me. And so when we're finding that something is not working, we need to adjust so we can be rightly related. So that's going to look different for every single person and every single couple. So for some couples, that might mean they need to get divorced in order for them to be rightly related. Others, maybe they stay married, but they put in these different boundaries so they can be rightly related to one another, right? It is so much more complex and nuanced and unique for every couple than we make it out to be. We either say you're married or you're divorced. And even this whole idea that somehow married relationships are seen as more legitimate than any other kind of relationship. And again, when it comes to relationships, it is going to be as unique to you as it is going to be to any other human. You are uniquely you. And so what works for you is going to be different from the person next to you and from the person next to them. So the point of your relationships and the point of your marriage or the point of your partnership is to figure out what works for you, despite what anyone else thinks, despite what society has to tell you, despite what religion has to tell you. This is your life. This is your story. You get to figure out, you get to determine what works for you. And here's another thing. I know when divorce is on the table, or it's at least in the mind of someone, especially a mother, one of the biggest fears for women is their children, right? Like, oh my God, I can't do this to my baby. And so then women stay in these relationships that they are like dying to be out of because they don't want to hurt their children. Here's the thing, and this is true for, I think, any mom who loves her children. We don't want our kids to experience pain. Sometimes I think I wish I could just put bubble wrap around my kids, bubble wrap around their heart. I just don't want them to experience pain. But that's just not realistic, right? Every single human is going to encounter pain in this world. So our parenting job is not to protect them from pain. Our parenting job is to prepare them for pain. So that when pain comes, instead of trying to tell them to run from it, we come alongside them and we point to it. And we say the way through pain is through the pain. And I will hold your hand every step of the way. Mail carrier. I will hold your hand every step of the way. And the beautiful thing is, when our children go through pain, when they face the fires of life, what they're going to find is that they are fireproof. That they don't get consumed or burned up by the fire, but they're fireproof. And then they learn that they can take the fire and they can use it to light up the world instead of burn themselves with it, right? They're going to find that their pain is their power. So our job is not to protect our children from pain. Our job is to prepare them for pain. And we walk them through the journey and we give them the permission to feel, grieve, cry, do whatever they need to do to process the feelings of the pain, of the change, of the transition, and showing them how strong and resilient they are as they're tender and weak and cry and weep, right? And then when they get to the other side and see that they survived, they will have realized a strength in them that they might not have known had they not gone through that pain. And so the point is to walk our children through whatever it is, and whether it's the divorce or a friend who hurts them or a dream of theirs doesn't come true. Our job is to prepare them, support them, give them the tools and walk through them, and they're going to find they're fireproof. And one of my favorite quotes when it comes to divorce, as you know, I love, love, love Glennon Doyle for 1,000 reasons. And one of the reasons why I love her is she is one of the few beautifully positive stories on divorce that's so public. I think all of us know or have heard of or know someone personally who went through a horrendous, messy, traumatizing divorce. And here's the thing, that is always an option. Always, always, always an option. But the flip side is always an option too. You can have, depending on your partner, but there is a way to try to create a different narrative for you. Just because you've seen everyone do it this way doesn't mean you have to do it this way. You can do it in a way that honors you, that honors your partner, that honors your children. So you, as the author of your story, as the agent of your story, you get to decide how your story goes on your end. So you can do it how everyone expects you to do it, or you can do it in a way that works for you. Whether or not people understand, you have to do what works for you. And so I love Glennon Doyle so much because her divorce was very public. She went on tour with her wife, and they told this story of how she ended up divorcing her husband and marrying her wife, and they have this amazing family. And now whenever they post about their story, about their family, they always put #fixedfamily. The divorce is what led to their family being fixed. The divorce is what led to their healing and transformation. If that divorce had not happened, they all would have been in a worse place. So I love when we can see alternative narratives to broaden our perspective and to show us what options are out there. And what she did is so against the grain in so many ways. And yet to see their happiness and to see their kids' resilience and to hear the stories of how they're doing, it's just like every human needs to hear the story. Anyway, but what I was going to say is one of my favorite quotes about divorce is by Glennon. And she said, when it comes to divorce, I want to get this right. If it's between saving your marriage and saving your soul, then save your soul. And as a coach, I'm always really, really careful to not create false dichotomies that it's either or, but there are certain situations where it is an either or. And if it's between, and this can be applied to anything, whether it's for a marriage or for a job or for a situation, if it's between saving your job and saving your soul, save your soul. If it's between saving your relationship or saving your soul, save your soul. If it's between saving your friendship and saving your soul, save your soul. right? We all likely know someone who has stayed in a friendship, a career, or a relationship long after they should have, and everyone is miserable. They're miserable, their partner's miserable, their kids are miserable, their friends are miserable, their job people, their coworkers are miserable. It's just a miserable situation. And we sit back in awe and think, oh my God, how much longer are you gonna tolerate this? What will it take for you to realize you deserve more than this? But because of shame or because of stigma or because of fear, people stay in situations long after they should. And I'm passionate about this topic because I know so many women, and women come to me when they find themselves in a relationship that they don't want to be in anymore. And they're terrified of what their family's going to think, their friends are going to think, society's going to think. And when they try to open up and share this with their people, they're immediately shamed into silence. And they're immediately shamed to stay small and to stay where they are, because how dare they try anything different? And I just think, my God, as human beings, we are constantly evolving, we're constantly growing, we're constantly changing. And if at some point something is no longer working for you, let that shit go. They're one of the biggest problems people have is hanging on to things that no longer serve them, versus people going after and doing what they know they're called to do, what their heart is calling them to do. Sorry, I have music on because it really keeps me calm and grounded. People would rather stay and hold on to things that no longer serve them than to do what their heart is calling them to do. And there's all kinds of shame and stigma with it. And so I'm here to say, and I'm not saying, yay, everyone go divorce your spouse. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, if your heart is calling you in that direction, if that topic is on the table, give yourself the permission to think it through. Give your permission to see, how does a relationship work for me? What would it look like to be rightly related to my partner? Is it staying married? Is it being divorced? Is it something completely different than those two options? What can we create as a family that works for us? Because ultimately, everyone who has an opinion for your marriage, they're not in your marriage. You are in your marriage. You have to decide what works best for you. And if your partner is amicable and willing to work with you, awesome. Figure it out together. If your partner is an asshole and doesn't help you or support you, then you've got to figure out what is right for you and right for your babies. And I remember Glenna saying this quote about when she knew leaving her husband was the right thing to do and was terrified because of all the reasons we've talked about here. The reason she was staying in her marriage is because she did not want her kids to experience pain, right? And then she had this aha moment when she realized, wait, why am I staying in a marriage that I would never want my daughter to be in? Why am I trying to save something that I would hope my daughter would never try to save for herself? If she was in this marriage, I would want her to leave, right? So as a society, we have got to do a better job. As friends and as family, we have got to do a better job of holding space for our friends who are thinking about divorce, and stop shaming them, stop silencing them, stop adding to the stigma and saying, hey, how can I support you? What would you like to talk about? Can you walk me through this? Instead of freaking out, because sometimes we have our own triggers and we freak out and we throw it on other people. So we need to do a better job as society, as friends, and as family to hold that space for them, to let them explore what is right for them, because ultimately it's their marriage. It is not your marriage. And as much as you think you have the right answer, you don't get to make the decision for them. And we are grown adults, so we have to trust that they're making the right decision. And guess what? If they make the wrong decision, we live in a self-correcting, self-guiding universe filled with grace. There is grace for our mistakes. We've all made mistakes. So we need to extend that same grace to our friends or family who are having this conversation, and letting them trust themselves, letting them trust the universe, that they're always being guided. They're not making this decision in a vacuum where it's just them and they're not taking anything else into consideration. And oh my God, let's hope they don't screw it up. They are being constantly guided by the universe. They have their intuition. They have the key people in their life speaking into them. And there's infinite grace for all of us, including those of our friends who need or are facing the reality of divorce. And I personally think divorce does not need to be a negative thing. I would much rather view divorce as a tool to scoop out the gunk that is infecting everyone so that everyone can heal. So if you're facing divorce and you're terrified, First, know you are infinitely loved, infinitely whole, infinitely complete, infinitely supported, no matter what your external circumstances look like. Always come back to that internal foundation, to the eternal truth that you are held, loved, and carried, and you will be guided, and you have all the grace in the world for every step of your journey, period. And then second, you have to decide what is best for you. I know it can be tempting to want everyone and anyone else to tell us what to do, but when it comes to your marriage, it's your marriage, and you have to decide what works for you. And I'm not gonna hold shame and stigma around that. The whole point is not to become not a divorce statistic. The whole point of marriage is not to simply not get divorced. The whole point of any relationship is to be rightly related. And you have got to figure out, what does it look like to be rightly related with your partner, if possible. And sometimes that can look like staying in a marriage, sometimes that can look like getting a divorce, and sometimes it can look like whatever you create it to be. And this is another reason why I love Glennon so much, because she and her ex-husband co-parent beautifully, and her ex-husband and her wife play soccer together. I mean, come on. And her wife is her kid's coach, and the ex-husband comes to the games. It's a beautiful example of what is possible when you're willing to put the shame and the stigma to the side, and you use your imagination as the agent of your story to create the relationship and the family of your dreams. You get to decide what works for you, and you and your family are as unique to yourselves as every other family. So what works for all these other families may not work for you. So if these other options that people are giving you don't feel right, that's okay. You have permission to get still and figure out what does feel right for you, what does work for you. And you always bring the conversation back to, what does it look like to be rightly related? And that is going to look different for every person, for every relationship, for different seasons in our life. So don't let shame, don't let stigma, don't let fear keep you in any situation, whether it's a marriage, a job, a friendship, an opportunity, a conversation, whatever it is. Don't let fear, shame, or stigma keep you in a situation longer than you need to be. Because when it comes between saving that situation or saving your soul, you always save your soul. Because when you save your soul and when you get healthy and happy, everybody wins. So we're done with this moral checklist. It's so archaic. It is such an injustice to every human couple. And we're going to turn to and use the web of life where we're all connected. So when you're healthy and happy, everyone is more healthy and happy. And when you're in a toxic situation that is bringing you down and crushing your soul, everyone feels that in the web of life. So it is crucially important that you do what you need to do to save your soul, and you figure out what it looks like to be rightly related. And the right people will understand, and the rest who don't even worry about them. The right people will come along at the right time, and people will get it. They'll get it when they see it happen. You have to be true to you. You have to be true to your story, and I will continue doing my work to help society drop the shame, drop the stigma around divorce, around women trying to do what is best for themselves and their babies, and any person on their journey just trying to do the best they can with life. And for every single person, because this is bigger than divorce or marriage, you're infinitely loved. You're infinitely supported. You're infinitely held. You can trust that you're being guided. You can trust you know what you're doing. Even when you're unclear, you follow that tug in your heart, and that tug will lead you all the way home. Follow that tug. Follow that yearning. Follow that light. Follow that voice. And let everyone else worry about themselves. Okay? I love you guys. I'm always in your corner. I want what is best for every single human, and you are worthy of a life. You are worthy of relationships. You are worthy of a job. You are worthy of a marriage. You are worthy of an opportunity. You are worthy of a life experience that takes your breath away, brings you infinite joy, filled with love and laughter and life. That is your birthright. It's what we all deserve, and I will fight to have that happen for every single person I work with, personally and in spaces like this. Love you guys.